G'day everyone and welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be going through my round 19 AFL tips and predictions for the 2025 AFL home and away season. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy today's video, as always, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new and not wasting your time. Let's get straight into it. Now before we do get into today's tips, I just want to quickly acknowledge the fact that I do have a tipping comp, and I know there's only 5 rounds left of this year's season, but it's not too late to join as it does go all the way to the end of the grand final. And I tell you what, it's going to be a pretty close finish in this tipping cup. If you want to join, the link to join is in the description below. The cash prizes for this tipping cup is first place wins $100, second place will win $30, and third place wins $15. So you're not going to want to miss out on that. My tipping, I had a pretty good run the last few weeks. I have had 2 perfect rounds in a row, and then last week, well, I got 2 out of 9. So that's one of the worst weeks of tipping I've ever had in history. Now let me go through the very long list of tips that I got incorrect. Now the first one was at People's First Stadium between the Suns and the Pies. I was obviously going to back the Pies. I mean, I do support them. I'm a huge Pies fan, and I feel like we are the better team than the Gold Coast Suns, and I do feel like we played better than them on the weekend. The only issue is we just really wasted that first quarter scoring wise. I feel like we were pretty good in the first half. We just could not find a single goal on the scoreboard, and that really costed us in the second half, even though we did almost come back and win. We had a chance to win it, and unfortunately we just blew it. Then I tipped the Bulldogs to win at home against the Adelaide Crows. I simply just think because it was at home, I thought the Dogs were going to get up. Unfortunately, they lost by 11 points. I backed the Cats to win away at NG Stadium. I know the Giants are a pretty strong team at home, but I just feel like the Cats really needed this win to their belt. They still needed to show that they are still in contention for that flag. And I tell you what, their chances of winning the flag are becoming very, very slim now. I feel like if you just don't finish inside the top 4 this season, you can't win the flag. I feel like we're not going to see anything like what we saw last year with Brisbane. Essendon to win against Richmond, and I tell you what, that might be one of the worst games of footy I have ever witnessed. That was such a poor, low-scoring game of footy. You would think it was pelting down rain, but no, it was just simply because of their skill. In fact, the full game length only went for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, while games usually go for over 3 hours. And then I tipped Hawthorn to beat Freo. Freo got the win at Optus. I think Freo, that could be the real deal now. If they get a few more wins to their belt, just climb the ladder, they could go far in finals this year. Silly old me tipped North Melbourne to beat Melbourne. I just thought after that clash earlier in the year, North Melbourne got up by 50 points against the D's. I just thought they were going to I knew the D's would make it a bit of a closer contest this time round, but I didn't think they'd have what it takes to get up, and I thought North Melbourne would still get up by 20. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, though. I backed St Kilda to beat the Swans, and that was probably one of the best games of footy we've seen all year. It was just all back and forth, goal for goal, at pretty much all stages of the game. And now, enough talking about last week's tips. Let's get straight into this week. To start off the Thursday at 7:30 PM, we've got the Essendon Bombers taking on the GWS Giants at Marvel Stadium. This one's really a no-brainer. I understand that it is Essendon's home game at Marvel, but I just feel like the Giants are just such a strong team. Even though they are playing an away game, the Bombers, they've just been in some pretty poor form, and especially after losing to Essendon last week, no one's really going to have their hopes up high for the Bombers. I think the Giants will win this game by 30 points. Moving on to the Friday at 7:40 PM, we have the Brisbane Lions taking on the Western Bulldogs at the Gabba. Second place taking on 9th place. That's right, after last week's game that the Bulldogs lost against Adelaide, they've officially dropped out of the top 8, meaning that they are really, really in desperate need for this win against the Lions. And tell you what, it's going to be pretty hard. I think they still are a chance of getting up here. Aaron Norton, after last week's performance, he's going to have hopefully a good game this week. Sam Darcy, we've seen better games from him in the last few weeks. Unfortunately, he just did not make too much of an impact last week. Hopefully he can make up for it this week, and let me tell you, the Dogs are really going to need that. The Bond, he's strong as always in that midfield. Ed Richards, I feel like, made a pretty impressive impact. As for the Lions, though, they've got such a strong forward line. Their small forwards are doing absolute bits. Both the Ashcroft brothers in the midfield, Brownlow medalist Lachie Neale, Hugh McCluggage, he might have the most Lions Brownlow vote this year, and I feel like no one's really talking too much about him. Overall, the Lions are going into this game as favourites, and I think there's a fair reason why that is, and I think the Lions will win this game by 19 points. On Saturday, the 19th of July, we're heading over to Tasmania between the Hawthorn Hawks and the Port Adelaide Power at 1:20 PM at UTAS Stadium. We haven't seen this clash since Gather Round, where the Hawks played some pretty poor brand of footy, and that was really their last sort of sight as a good team. I mean, at the time, I think the Hawks were first on the ladder, and I think just ever since that loss, they've just lost a lot of confidence. At one stage, I think at Port Adelaide were up by 70 points. Although the Hawks did kick a lot of goals in the second half and made a bit of a close contest, the game was just too far gone in pretty much the first quarter, and there was no way for them to come back. As for Port Adelaide, I felt like they played pretty well last week, despite their first half against West Coast being pretty sloppy. I mean, West Coast did lead at half time, which yeah, a lot of fans were pretty surprised about that, including myself. I thought I was going to get another tip wrong and only score 1 out of 9. As for the Hawks, though, I really think they are a better team than Fremantle, which is why I was so shocked when they lost. You'd hate to be the team that finishes 9th. After a very close top 8, you'd hate to finish outside the top 8. And I feel like after that really strong start to the AFL season, they just need one win to their name to get up and about again. And as for Port Adelaide, I feel like they've been in a bit of a slump the last few weeks, and they just really need to find a bit more form. So both teams really need this win to their name, but I think in Tassie, Port Adelaide have got no hope, and I think Hawthorn will win this game by 33 points. Now, the SCG, we have the Sydney Swans taking on North Melbourne at 4:15 p.m. The odds really tell you what you need to know. It's currently Swans $1.10 to North Melbourne $7. I really felt like North had a chance to get another win to their name last week against Melbourne. Unfortunately, they could not get over the line like they did earlier in the year, which is really quite upsetting for them, because it'd be hard for them to get another win this season. They do currently sit at 16th on the ladder. As for the Swans, though, after a pretty impressive season last year, it looks like they're not going to finish inside the top 8 this season. Their finals chances are completely gone. So this game doesn't really mean anything to either teams at this point in time. The Swans obviously do have a stronger list, obviously in their forward line, back line, midfield, just all over the place. I feel like one thing that North Melbourne are doing really well is obviously their forward line. They've got some pretty good up and coming talent. I mean, Nick Larkey, he's 100% a future Coleman medalist. Maybe even next year he might get the medal around his neck, or I'd be pretty shocked if 5 years from now he hasn't won one. And their midfield's pretty strong as well. Simpkin, Sheasel's had a good for the last few weeks. But overall, I think the Swans should get up this week. I'll go Swans by 30. Next up at 7:35 p.m, we have the Carlton Blues taking on the Melbourne Demons, and this will be at the MCG. So be surprised. I feel like this is the type of the game that should be at Marvel Stadium. I'm not going to be a very too high crowd. I understand Carlton do have a pretty large fan base, but I feel like the last few weeks they haven't really been pulling in too much of a crowd. And as for Melbourne, well, when was the last time you saw a Melbourne Demons crowd that got over 60k at the MCG? I'll tell you what, Brisbane really just like to keep teams in it for the first 2 quarters of footy, and then they just like to break their hearts in the second half, and that's exactly what happened. I want to quickly make a little mention to my boy Mark Pitnett. Beautiful goal from about 60 metres out. But yeah, then they had that shocking loss the week before against Collingwood. They lost by 56. As for Melbourne, they're going to have their heads held up pretty high this week after getting that win against North Melbourne last week. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to back Melbourne this week. I've just got such a strong midfield in Oliver and Petrarca and Jack Viney as well. What a season he's had. Their forwards are pretty strong, and I feel like their defence is lacking a bit, but I feel like their forwards and midfields will be doing enough to hopefully win the game in a bit of a close one. I'm going to go Melbourne by 2 goals. And what a game of footy we have to finish off the Saturday at 8:10 p.m. at Optus Stadium. We have the West Coast Eagles taking on the Richmond Tigers. Yet argue that the only hope the Eagles have this year of not taking on the wooden spoon is getting this win against Richmond, and hopefully a win or 2 later in the year as well. It's going to be pretty hard though. I think Richmond are probably going to go out here and win this game. Surprisingly, West Coast are the favourites though. West Coast have only had 1 win all season. As for the Tigers though, they've had 4 wins. 1 win being last week against the Essendon Bombers, and as I said earlier, that was one of the worst games of footy I've ever seen in my life. Like, that gives me throwbacks to COVID footy. Both teams, they're lacking in all sort of places, and I just feel like neither of them are really that strong. Tim Taranto's been pretty good for the Tigers. Tom Lynch has been pretty good, but he's not playing this week, obviously, due to that suspension. The Eagles, Joe Shanahan, he looks like he could be some up-and-coming talent for the West Coast Eagles in the next few years. Harley Reid played a pretty impressive game last week. Probably one of his best games he's played in his career, if not the best. Both teams are just going to need their players to be playing their best brand of footy, and I feel like from the Eagles, the players that need to step up most this week is Liam Ryan, probably McCarthy, Baker, maybe Marek. As for the Tigers, Hopper, Taranto, Prestia, and honestly, probably Ned Curvis as well. I'll tell you what, this is a hard tip, but I think the Tigers will get over the line here. We'll go Tigers by 7. Now moving on to the Sunday at 1:10 p.m, we have the Geelong Cards taking on the St Kilda Saints at GMHBA Stadium. This is 4th place taking on 15th place. Obviously, earlier in the year, the St Kilda Saints did get over the line against the Geelong Cards. Huge upset, as you can tell. The Cats did unfortunately lose last week against the GWS Giants at NG Stadium, which they're going to really want to be winning this game, as they do currently sit at 4th place on the ladder. They need to get their rankings up a little bit more higher, because if not, their top 4 could be on the line this game. If they lose this game of footy after having one of the easiest fixtures in the AFL, if not the easiest, I tell you what, they're going to struggle this final series if that is the case. But despite St Kilda really being the Cats' weakness, I think at home at GMHBA Stadium, it's going to be pretty hard to lose it. So they go to tip the Cats. They got Bailey Smith, Max Holmes, Stangel, Cameron, who's almost guaranteed to win the Coleman medal at this point, unless some season-ending injury hits him within the next few weeks. I think they probably have one of the best defenses in the comp at the moment, and I'll go the Cats to win this game by around 25 points. Now, 3:15 p.m, we have the Collingwood Magpies taking on the Fremantle Dockers at the MCG, being goalless in the first half of footy. I feel like they didn't play that badly. I've had a lot of people laugh at me when I say that, because we did go goalless in 2 quarters of footy and almost 3, but I feel like once we got that first goal, we had a bit of a rhythm going, and the fact that Gold Coast almost lost that game is absolutely shocking. I just really feel like once we took that lead, we just couldn't do much to maintain it. What Collingwood would typically do, as soon as they take the lead, even if it's only by 1 or 2 points, they just like to slow the game down and not even worry about, kicking one more goal to seal the game. They just like to slow the game down, and if they can potentially get another goal out of it, then they'll take it. The 4th quarter is probably one of the best quarters of footy Josh Jacobs has ever played. 2 goals and I think around almost 15 touches. That's insane. Darcy Cameron, we've seen better games from him this year. I've been talking up him all year, saying how he's top 5 ruckman in the comp, and then Mason Cox, I feel like, probably had a better performance than him. Unfortunately, Cox, that might have been one of the last games in his career. I can't imagine he's going to sign on next year. Nick Jacobs, he was very injury prone in that first half of footy. I was a bit worried. I think he will play this game this weekend, but I don't think he'll play next week against Richmond. I feel like we'd almost be better off resting him. This is first place taking on 8th place, and it's sort of the same situation as Geelong. I just can't imagine the Pies losing 2 games in a row, and even with how good the Fremantle Dockers have been the last few weeks, obviously they're coming strong off a win. I think the Pies will get up this weekend. We'll go Pies by 20. And to conclude this round of football at 4:40 p.m, we have the Adelaide Crows taking on the Gold Coast Suns at the Adelaide Oval. The Suns obviously coming off a win against the team that's currently sitting 3 games on top, well, now 2 games on top of the ladder. Also got that win against the Essendon Bombers the week before, Melbourne Demons the week before that. So yeah, with a 3-game winning streak to their name, they're going to want to hopefully make that 4. They're going to try and finish as high as possible on this AFL ladder, and maybe even inside that top 4 potentially, because this is going to be one of their first ever final series, and they're going to struggle to get that first win of the finals due to experience. So they're going to hope to finish inside the top 4 just for that second chance, but it's going to be pretty hard run home. As for the Crows, got an 11-point win against the Dogs last week, 13 points against Melbourne the week before, 68-point win against the Tigers 3 weeks ago, had the bye in round 15, and then obviously lost to the Hawks in Tasmania by 3 points. So both teams have been playing pretty similar brands of footy the last few weeks. I think Adelaide do have obviously the home ground advantage this week, so that's gonna be making them play slightly better, but both teams are pretty huge. Although, as you know from the last few years, the Gold Coast Suns really hate to play away games. That's when they play pretty poorly. Obviously, we saw them lose away earlier this year against the Richmond Tigers at Marvel Stadium. Dawson, he's been really good the last few weeks, but as for Gold Coast, obviously Witts, Noble, Anderson, Rao, even Took Miller, he's been playing pretty well this year. So obviously the Crows will need Thilthorpe and Fogarty to really step up this week in the forward line, and I think Rankin's going to have a good job as well. Unfortunately, Josh Rochelle is going to be out with that knee injury that he copped. I still think the Adelaide Crows will get up this week, and it's going to be pretty hard. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a pretty good way to finish off the round. I'm going to go Adelaide to win this game by 3 points. And that will wrap up today's tipping video. I hope you all did enjoy, and if you did, could you please show me that by liking the video, as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel.